Generation XYZ. We want to talk about digital homes, digital futures. And we want to find out if the internet can help us to get together or divides us. And we have 3 different generations up on stage here, and me, myself. And so, yeah, those were my 2 jokes for this talk. I've really struggled with this tablet before. I've got this Notes app, and once you move them around, it just doesn't work anymore. And so this is a little screwed up now. It's like when you insert an image into a Microsoft Word document. So you know that problem, right? Well, yeah, and now it's gone. So up on stage with me, a quick shout out. Patricia Cammarata, Theresia Crone, Oğuz Yılmaz. Please give them a warm round of applause. And yeah, just a little introduction, and of course you can add to those intros yourself. Patricia, we've known each other for quite a while from the internet. You've got a blog called Das Move. You're an author. You've written 2 bestsellers, 3 bestsellers. Yeah, sorry about that. And you're the host of various podcasts on various matters, family, equality. Yeah, it's great to have you. Thanks for being here. Thank you. Oğuz, a pioneer on the internet and a pioneer on YouTube, a co-founder of YTT, a famous German YouTube channel. And, you know, that was insane, right? 3 million subscribers on YouTube way back when. Sold out shows, you've gotten various awards, and you've stuck around in this sort of sphere, right? But now you're a talent manager with your agency, Yılmaz Hummel. So great to have you here. Thank you. Theresia Crone. You're so young and you've already accomplished so much. You're an activist, an author. You've written a school book on climate change. You've studied German and French law, and now you work in a law firm focused on media law. So it's just insane. Wow. And what's really important, you've participated in the hashtag Reclaim TikTok during the European Parliament election, and 2022 you started the campaign End Endo Silence. And during our talk before, you've mentioned that without the internet, you know, this campaign focusing on endometriosis, that wouldn't have been possible, right? That wouldn't have happened. And so the Ministry of Health, they wouldn't have, you know, given any attention to your cause, right? Yeah, so please, if you've heard the word endometriosis before, please raise your hand. Well, that's so great. That's so great. 5 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case. It would have been like 20 or 30% of you, or maybe 10 years ago. And I'm fully convinced that the only reason that that's not the case is that people suffering from endometriosis started, you know, talking about it on Instagram, on social media, and, you know, did community building. And so that was the first time that sort of social rooms were created where people could talk about it and have discussions. And endometriosis is a illness that mostly happens to women, and so quite a few symptoms weren't even like researched, and they just, for example, a bloated belly, what we call an endo belly, that wasn't known before people started talking about that, and that wasn't like done by researchers. And so then, you know, scholars of medicine started taking this seriously and started, you know, focusing on this as a symptom of endometriosis. And so I was very lucky to be able to toil this fertile soil that was already there. And so but I still had to, keep on explaining to my doctors what sort of illness this is, even though there's 2 million people suffering from it. And so I don't want to just complain. I also want to, draw conclusions from the complaints that we have. And so, for example, in France, where I've also lived, we need politics to actually deal with it. Women's health doesn't just have to happen in Facebook communities. It also needs to be discussed in talk shows and in parliament.
I asked the other two of the other generations, did you hear about that campaign about 2 years ago? Well, I didn't hear about that campaign, but the term I got used to the term. That was something new for me. And nowadays it's known to the general, you can talk about it, and most people know what it is all about. I'm always on the internet, so I have seen that, yeah, of course. But if you say, okay, you're on the internet all the time, that we can draw a line to the work for the TinCon young people. And when these people tell me, okay, yeah, we really like this song, well, all besides of me, because I don't get it. TikTok is something like a book with 7 seals, because that's right, it's not for me. But where would you say, is your social net, where is it? Is it's home? It's not YouTube, right? Yeah, really. Yeah, it's true. It's YouTube. That's where I spend most of my time, on YouTube. TikTok, Instagram is, well, it's zapping through, basically. It's, if I, like earlier days, like TVs, if you have a remote where I'm using the remote and sit in front of it and zap and scroll through the channels, I can't decide. And then at some point, I stop looking at something for a longer time. But YouTube, as I'm using it, I'm deciding for something. So as you might have done in the TV paper, where you have a look at what's running, and that's something, well, it's more that you look of it. Okay, what am I consuming? It's the difference between YouTube and Instagram, TikTok. I decide on something, I click on something on a thumbnail, and that's why people watch pre-roll advertisements. YouTube tried that before, that there was pre-roll advertisements. No one's watching them because no one's watching content on TikTok and Instagram just by detail. That's not where this kind of advertisement works. That's still the case. It won't change, but I'm still using YouTube for my breakfast, for lunch. Do you still read the comments? Not really, because there's a lot of trash in the comments, and I don't want to have a look at weird thinking about all these comments. Some copy them. For example, there's a sex bot doing this and that, and all the comment areas on all platforms are kind of trashed. That's really sad. I gave up on that. Your favorite platform, Patricia? Well, if you want to define it, where I spend most of my time, it's Instagram. But I feel homeless, kind of, because in the beginnings of the internet, as I knew it, all this exchange, or what you can see especially, I'm having exchange on Instagram that people send messages to me, but if you have you share that, that's not happening a lot of times anymore. So yeah, that's sad. So let's come to the surprise, yeah, and I'm a little homeless right now. Without Twitter, yeah. Twitter this is connecting to the panel from last year. Nothing has changed. I'm always trying new stuff, but I miss the group of people I feel connected to. It's all on different platforms, and I can't break my bubble. That's homogeneous, basically. There's not a lot on my timeline where I'm thinking, okay, this is really interesting, and I look at the profile and I follow people, but it's, well, self-referential, and yeah, it's kind of sad. Some other sufferers, that's so sad, and you get applause for it. That's weird. When I prepared for this panel, what was really important for us, all these thoughts have been, well, kind of the idea behind this motto. When I was 18, I was in London for the first time, and it was so super, and you went to the pubs and all generations were there. There were kids running around in the afternoon because the parents still had something to do. There's old people. The Sex Pistols were running, and you played darts, and it was really nice. And in all countries of the world, you found out, like, if you show kids there's alcohol and cigarettes, that's not so good. So we just put them out of the pubs. When I was in England for the last time, it's had been quite a while. It's not like that anymore, that the generations mix. But nevertheless, in preparation, I was asking myself, is this a constructed topic we're talking about? Do we actually need space that works for more generations and do stuff together? Hasn't it always been the case that the generations had been divided? You said something really interesting, that the differentiation between the generations hasn't been so bad. When I started with TikTok, I hadn't expected that I mostly get young people in my stream. I'm coming from Schwerin and coming from the East. And when I went to school, most people went to Fridays for Futures demos with me. And I have someone in my family who's at the same school. And in that class, I asked about political things, and the half of my class is voting AfD, the right party, and we're looking at Maximilian Krah videos, and that really shocked me, because I was asking myself, for during 5 years, how could so much change? And I thought TikTok was the answer. That might be a really short analysis, but that's why I looked at TikTok. That's why I went there and was there for people and looked at people who are brainwashed by Maximilian Krah. About 20% of the people on TikTok are over 50. It's really nice to have them in my comment area, but when we tried that, and I can really reach people from 17 to 70, so it's a real broad focus, but I can't reach the really broad group. But more or less, since I'm talking like someone who has studied, I'm talking about topics. Someone would talk about who's reading news. That's how I behave myself. There's this really special group of people looking at my content who understands when I'm speaking this language, when I have the same background maybe. And this is the problem we actually have. The fragmentalization of the platforms we have right now. We don't really have the age difference, but more or less the socio-economic backgrounds, the political views, and that's where the internet is really divided, and also the platforms. I have a different timeline, for example, than Oğuz, than Patricia, than you, and that's where we are at the point where we are on the same platforms. We wouldn't be in the same pub, basically. We would be in different continents and different pubs. And that's the problem we have, that this fragmentalization we have to look at it, and we have to understand it. And what you also forget is, you're talking about inclusion and barrier freeness. 20% of all people in Germany are functional analphabets. So 20% of the people in Germany can't read complex sentences. That's why we have the news in easy language. But if we talk about Substacks or Blue Sky or whatever, and longer formats, where you have political analysis, where you can talk about it, where where you have to ask yourself, if you think about these people and these groups, if we are inclusive enough to open our digital room like a pub, and we don't just expect people to have higher levels of education to understand us.
You can interrupt me anytime, by the way. Yes, I know. Everything you just said, it also applies to Republica, right? We know, it's there's a cost of entry, and we're well aware of this space not being as open and not like inclusive to the whole of society as we want it to be. A few years ago, we've tried that with Netz, where we try to have outside and free of charge various offerings to bypassers, basically. And if we had much more money, much more funding, then you could have more programs like that. And so I think it's very important what you just said. And yeah, I just want to highlight that we're aware of that when it comes to our own events. So, Patricia, you've mentioned you've got this very homogeneous audience. Would you want it to be more heterogeneous? Yeah, definitely. But there's also this culture of communication, right, which is being defined by algorithms, and that algorithms push content that's controversial. And so when you constantly have these two fronts in your comment section, and some are for something, some are against something, that's not really helpful. And so to have this sort of like openness where there's actually like debate and, look at this argument, you've maybe not considered that before, that doesn't really happen. And so when you try to be like more leveled and have long form content, then you don't get any views. You like disappear in the digital nirvana. And so it's very hard to overcome this dependence on algorithms and to create content that isn't mostly made to be seen. So what really bugs me is when you link from a platform out to somewhere else because you want to network, because you want to highlight other works, and then your reach is limited very much. And so if you have like 3 different links per week, then you only get like 10% of the views you would usually get for regular content that doesn't link out to other platforms. And so that's really hard, and it's especially sad when, think about political topics. I mostly deal with care, and so it's, if you do a lot of care work, it's very hard to find the time to actually do political action. And yeah, but by the rules that platforms have implemented on sharing content, it's being very limited and very hard. Yeah, so this linking out of platforms, right, that's not new at all. From our Facebook page way back when, in like 2009, 2010, we created our Facebook page when StudiVZ went away. And we had like 1 million followers, likes, or whatever on our Facebook page. And for a few months, that was really great. And we published a new video on YouTube every week, and then also, posted it on Facebook on our page. And a couple of thousands shares we got there, and comments and stuff like that. And so in our YouTube stats, we saw that, a part of our audience came from Facebook. But then Facebook sort of decided that's not, behavior that we want anymore. And so we ran a few tests, and then we saw that when people on Facebook, click on a YouTube link, they don't watch the whole thing. So why don't you just upload it on Facebook? That's what they told us. And we didn't do that because we wouldn't have any earnings from that. And then Facebook changed it so that there were only a couple of views per post that came from Facebook. And so, that's really profound, right? That because we just let Facebook, Meta, or whatever you want to call them, get away with it. They created the service, and we, Facebook, were happy when you use that, when you post to it and embed your content here on our platform. But then we just change it. We just take it away from you. Overnight, we change the algorithm, and, it's basically market manipulation, right? Why was this allowed? Where are all the people that are, getting upset about that have the reach to do something about it? And so I know this is at events like Republica, this is really important, but like on on a broad scale, that just works. That Meta is able to have a decent image, even though they do all of this shit. And we stick around. We're still on their platforms, right? And so when they say, we want to use your data to train AI, then everyone's like, yeah, all right. And we only have a few weeks to opt in or opt out. Today's the last day to opt out of Meta using your data to train AI, by the way. Yeah, and we know that they're going to do it anyway, right? Maybe in 10 years they're going to pay like a 10 billion fine, but they're going to have earned like 100 billion or whatever from training on all the data that they have, even without consent. And so maybe it doesn't really matter, right? There was also this news that Meta torrented hundreds or thousands or however many books illegally. And they're just going to pay a fine because they can, because they have the money to do it. Yeah, and so sorry for being so vulgar, but we need clear statements here. Come on, you need to grab Meta by the balls. And this is, I was a referee. Formerly, and it just bugs me because it's not fair, right? It's so unfair, and why don't we all together address this issue, and decide on, we all collectively leave your pub, leave your bar when you just decide to change the rules on us from one day to the next. And so, the expectations, they started this bar, they started this pub, and everyone came by to hang out. And then, they saw that there were different groups of friends hanging out there. And then there's this new rule that says, well, if you want to leave this bar, you can't, you're not allowed to. You can't keep in contact, keep in touch. You have to get together wholly new, and you have to, but it's just, if you transfer the scenario to a real world metaphor, it's just so insane. Yeah, so I think you have to look at different use cases, right? So if you're just a private person on one of these platforms, it doesn't really matter, right? And you just switch to a different platform and keep in touch there. But once you're on a platform and you need the reach that you have on there to sell products, sell services, stuff like that, you have an audience, then it really hurts, right? And once you're you depend on it to earn money, then it's really hard. And then it's also, you have to get used to a different platform if you want to leave. And so for me, formerly on my blog, I just wrote text, right? The first 15 years, I didn't even upload any images. I just had text. And so I had an audience and I had a discussion with my audience. But on Instagram, like the equipment I have to buy to have like proper lighting, to have proper audio, to have a proper video and cut the video, think of various concepts on how you want to create that multimedia content. And it's really weird that a lot of the times, like, we look down on influencers. That's not a proper job, yada, yada, yada. But you have to know so much stuff. You have to be capable of doing so much various stuff. And once you've, like, learned all that, and now you're able to do it, and you've learned all the different formats, what works, what doesn't work on Instagram, that's really a proper business case. And then you're not flexible anymore. Then you just can't like walk out of the pub and be like, I don't care, I'm going to go somewhere else. But like you've sort of, modeled your whole apartment after the pub, and you just can't change that from one day to the next. Yeah, and so it's really complex, right? Instagram, Meta, I mean, they're not platforms, right? Maybe we need new names for that, but they profit from it because they let everyone fight against each other. And then, Instagram, that's the feed. It's like their like magazine, like their, and yeah, and so they it's algorithmically made, but it's still like this sort of competition of user-generated content. You gotta like short sell the stuff you create, and then Meta decides with the attention that they control what you get for it. And you can't earn any money on Meta really. But so you get a little bit of attention for your works, and if you want to earn money with that somewhere else, that's not Meta's problem. And so, they really do like editorialize what you see on the platforms, right? And once they decide that this sort of content doesn't please them anymore, and if you're not able to keep up with the speed of changes, then you're down on your luck. And then, like, your next video will just have 1% of the views that your previous video will have, and they will just say, well, that's the algorithm's fault, right? Yeah, and so we don't just want to, like, have the sound as, oh, it's so hard for us on various social media platforms. I could do makeup videos to earn my money, but this really is a real threat to our democracy because we've lost so many various pubs. And so now a lot of political discourse happens on social media, but we have a private monopoly when it comes to social media. And those private companies decide, well, you get this sort of reach on Mondays, you get this reach all the time, you get this reach on Thursdays and Fridays from 1 to 2 p.m. And so it's not just about individuals who can't, like, turn their hobby into a proper job, but it's really a social problem, right? And so when we complain about Meta not funding our work, it's not just me not getting money, but it also costs to create content, right? I have to have the funds to pay for a lawyer because I'm a young woman in public, and sometimes I make political statements. I need to be able to pay for a lawyer, to pay for security. I have a cost for running various tech. And so it's not just this nice place, where you can render your services. So, for example, I, give sort of an overview of political content. But you're part of, like, the societal discourse. You're part of the political sphere. And so to have this private actor who can just decide on who gets to participate in that and who doesn't, that's the decisive point. That's the important point where we have disinformation campaigns on the same platform, in the same pub. And it's not just that the owner of the pub is evil, but you also have Russian spies sitting in the corner. trying to spread lies, and they're also in the same pub. And then you have like a sleepy police officer who should intervene but doesn't, and just says something like, "Oh, it's so complicated. I can't deal with all of that." Like, how do you take a screenshot?
Well, we have to talk about long-form content. You just mentioned Substack before, and newsletters and stuff like that, and platforms who try to build new communities. You just said that now we don't have the pubs in real life anymore. That's an important point. In the last about 20 years, there have been moments where I thought, like when it came to Republica, we're doing this for about 20 years. We meet so many nice and clever people. We bring them together. And 25% of the people in Germany voting for a right-wing party. What are we doing this for anyway? And then there was a really, after the pandemics, really moving when we were in the arena, when we started new again. And I felt that I knew that before, but I really felt that it's really important to meet in real rooms, to talk with each other, to look at each other. It sounds like a teacher, but it is like that. I really felt how important rooms like the Republica are, many, many more as well, but that really motivated me to put more energy into this. And we need these rooms, and even if we can't destroy the matters of the world, we're not going to Instagram anymore. Well, we tried that. That doesn't work. But maybe we can have these real rooms, the small ones. It doesn't have to be a Republica. Maybe it's also enough to have 20 people meet each other and to think about great stuff. Well, when we talked before, we talked about that as well. With the rooms, because in earlier days, I used to be a referee when I came into a new world, basically. How old were you? Like 16? Yeah, I was a soccer referee, and it's a volunteer work, and there's also older people, and we're knocking on the tables and everything. It's a completely different world, but I went there on my own, and I wanted it, and that made a difference, because these rooms, it was important. That was not forced onto me, like in the timeline. I wanted to do that, so I was more conscious of it. You're forced to do stuff in a pub. You just basically want to sit there with your friends, and then people come, and the owner of the bar says, I need to earn more and talk to these people, but I don't want to. And that's where we have to get back to, basically. I don't know if it sounds really big, but we have to have less choice and be happy with it. During the last years, I looked at this, and there's a really big offer on Instagram and TikTok. All the TikToks, all the videos are there in a wide variety of versions from different people, because they don't earn enough anymore, and they have to do output, and it's all too much of everything, and it's not really worth anymore. So it's overloaded with stuff. I think we have to get back to do less and to consume less and to put our focus on something we really want. And in the end, that one author profits from this one book that you're buying, and less from looking at the timeline where you have like 3 Instagram posts. You've seen that and liked it, but you've been 1 second and everything. That doesn't really do a lot. Do less. And if you have this, if you don't have this constant consummation anymore, just put it away, and you're kicking Meta's ass, basically. If you're reading the stuff you really want to read, to watch, and then put it away. And all this scrolling, only Meta profits from that. I wanted to come back to the topic of political engagement in digital platforms and in the real world. For one, I'm talking about myself. I have unlearned how to connect in the real world and to use existing structures. And for example, in your local area with the politicians, what are the ways to place topics? You shouldn't forget that in the digital rooms that are so attractive because they are accessible for certain topics. I talked about care work, for example. I didn't have any other options because with small kids and a full-time job, how am I supposed to do volunteer work? Or in my area, I have to be at a certain place to bake cakes and to bring people together. At weird times, when you want to do real work in the political area, there's no to reduce, for example, family topics to certain times where you don't have to do care work, where you would usually be asleep, for example. That's really difficult, and it needs a lot of privilege to be able to do that. And that's why these digital rooms are so attractive for it, because the little time you have, you can use in a flexible way. And you at least have the feeling that you can't do anything, you can work against it. And maybe depending on what kind of life stage you are, you have to concentrate on when you have the time, the kids are grown up, and I'm going back into the real rooms outside of the digital world. It's not everyone likes it. You don't have to do that. I really want to have questions from the audience. We have 15 minutes left, so you can prepare for asking really nice questions. I don't know, no pressure. No pressure, but you have to ask perfect questions, and you have to ask yourself: is the question important for at least half of the people in the room? Otherwise, well, everyone thinks like it's so boring when people from the audience say stuff, and I really like it and it's enriching, and I forget stuff asking you while you're thinking. That's about 2/3 of the people in the audience, I guess. The first people are leaving already. I'm leaving. Okay, that's boring. Let's talk about a possible future. What comes after TikTok? Last hype. And most of the older people say that the new shit is long-form content, like blogging and stuff. What are your experiences? Is that an actual way? Is text important in the future, or is it more visual, or are we there in a generational topic?
A difficult question, but yeah, I think it's the same thing again, right? I really like long-form content. I listen to like however many hours of podcasts each week. I subscribe to all of your Substacks, but I'm not, a typical user of those media, not for Gen Z and not for other generations as well. So people who've been on the internet for quite some time, I want to benefit from this. I want to have interesting analysis and this sort of long-form content that's going to be really great for those people. But like when we talk about Gen Alpha, a lot of those kids, they grew up on short-form video content, on curated content. And so I think in the short run, we're going to have more like, AI-generated, more curated content. I think Meta already uses that, and there's also this platform called Butterfly. They have ads saying they have regular influencers and AI influencers, and those two groups collaborate. So I don't know, it's wild. And so what I want to say is, we're going to have a fragmentation, division, lots of pubs on different continents. But my hope is that in spaces like here at Republica, we're going to, go back to the analog world or use publicly funded platforms, create publicly funded platforms in the EU, have decentralized platforms like the Fediverse. And I think spaces like here, we can have this, combination where nerds get together and talk about that, and then develop long-term solutions. And up front, you've used a great word that a lot of older people who subscribe to your content on TikTok or wherever, you called them climate boomers. And I really like that. Yeah, I learn something new every day. All right, we've got a question and we've got a mic for the audience. And now this is awkward pause. Yeah, thank you very much. So the topic of the panel was digital homes, digital futures, right? And so the major topic for me is that you've mentioned a couple of times the analog world. So we're sitting here, and but this being at Republica, it sort of feels like preaching to the converted, right? And so shouldn't we have sort of a Republica in rural areas? Not like West Germany against East Germany, the right-wing AfD, they're everywhere, right? And so I think that's something that we need to address, because those people, they're stuck in their own sphere, consume Musk content and whatever. Yeah, someone should do that, yeah. So, for example, with TinCon, we go to different cities because we know that young people, because of time and money issues, they can't travel throughout Germany. And so we're in Hamburg, Cologne, Dresden for the first time this year. But it's so hard to, do something like that in other cities. So the sort of idea of a circus, it would be so great, to travel throughout the country. But please, foundations, whatever, we need more money for that. Not to get rich, but to actually implement something like that. If you're, how hard this was after COVID. All the service workers, they couldn't earn any money during COVID, and so yada, yada, yada. But this sort of going on tour with a circus, that really sounds great. Another question back there. So now we could do a little ad in the meantime to earn some money, right? All right, so what we can agree on up here on stage is that this power, this monopoly of big corporations, Oğuz, you've mentioned earlier, why would we allow this monopoly to be created? Why would we allow them to track us? Yeah, because we're, but there's so many people using the internet not for 8 hours a day, and who didn't even know that they were tracked before we had these cookie banners. And now everyone's just allow all. Yeah, so no one leaves their house anymore. And so sorry, now we get to the question. Yeah, thank you. So I get this sort of sadness, this desperation from what you've said so far. So is this like a digital Weimar? Is this sort of the beginning of the end of democracy? Please, I could need some encouragement from you up on stage. Yeah, I'm going to answer that. I think there's this meme, right, of a hard-to-swallow pill, and I think we've dodged a few of those pills for some years now. There's doing the same sort of content to the same audience and having that be your livelihood. It's very hard, and everyone wants to, get famous overnight as an influencer, and so that's all bullshit, right? And I think a few people should just quit, and those people who continue to do create content online, that they can actually properly fund their livelihood by doing that, because as long as there's so many people doing it, like no one can actually afford to just have that as their main job. And so that would be a great start, and I'm really looking forward to doing something like that. I work with Theresia, and so we really were eager to do something like that, but it's just taken us quite a long time to make out this villain. I think that Meta is, in my opinion, the biggest villain that we should all fight together. So I don't know. Get in touch if you want to fight Meta. Yeah. Yeah. So what Oğuz wants to say, if I may, what he wants to say is we're at this turning point, people. So, I mean, Weimar could have been saved, right? And we're going to make it. We're going to make it. But what we need for that is that people get together, because in this David versus Goliath situation, and clearly Meta and Zuckerberg are Goliath in the situation, you can't win. But if you have 500,000 Davids, and you collectively organize, then you can win and overcome Goliath. I think that's the takeaway here. In all other aspects of political sphere, we have communities, we have unions, we have the climate movement, we have political parties, and it's always collective, organized political work. But that doesn't happen when it's about regulating big tech, finally regulating big tech, and showing them that it's not okay to just show up in a democracy and not follow the rules and not suffer any consequences from that.
That's a short, hopeful talk from you, Patricia. I can't really talk about courage, actually. You've done. I've done a lot of circles, and how can I do stuff and where, and sometimes, yeah, for me, it's all about gardening, book club, and to start over new, because the rooms and the time outside of the digital connection with people, it's really empowering for me, and I have the feeling that I can come over in a different way. You don't have to the same targets, basically. We have 5 minutes left. Do you want to say something? I don't, but maybe someone from the audience, maybe you can collect questions. So while you're walking over there, something that encourages people is there's someone waving with 2 arms. That's most important, I guess. Hi. I wanted to talk about a female quota. I thought about when you said that, yeah, just encouraging speech, that this fight is lacking from the politics at the moment. We had a big vote a few weeks ago, and it was a seldomly mentioned topic, how we deal with big tech. I've only seen that with the Greens, but maybe you have different views on that, and you say you're founding something. How do you plan to get in contact with the politics? How do you see chances to get in contact with parties that connect to these topics? I know that Markus Beckedahl founded something new, but I'm not really sure. In the last days, I didn't really have time to talk about that, but maybe you should ask him. Maybe he's telling you what he's actually planning. Maybe this might be the right direction, because that's also a problem in Germany, that you have like 12 organizations taking care of that. But maybe we just need 1 or 2. Yeah, I don't want to promise anything, because in the end we're 2 people, and in the next days we might become more than 2 people, but you can generate momentum artificially. It's important to talk about what we can do and to have some kind of awareness, and who wants to help us with it, who has the energy also to fight a political fight that's really important and crucial. And if you found yourself, you can go out and have more resources, more people, and also more strength. You can go to these platforms also in front of the politics. In the coalition contract, it's talking about hate speech, it's digital cruelty. It's all really, well, rough. But in the next 4 years, we have to fight for that, to make it more precise, to ask for the stuff that's put into this contract. We have this microphone in the back. Okay, sorry. You come over to the stage, and where we're standing around and talk to them. One question. Hi, I'm Julia. I want to give you courage. You make a good job. Just continue doing that, and also all in the auditorium. Let's get our asses up. I had a nice example yesterday. A friend of mine is only answering on WhatsApp. What the hell? Just start killing Meta here. Thank you. Bye. Wow, that's a good finishing word. Yeah, well, in the end, I'm getting up. I want to thank you all listening to us. I know this generational panel, we didn't really talk about that, but that doesn't matter. Let's have a rant on Meta, and we're on time. Goodbye. Thanks, Johnny Haeusler. Thanks, Patricia, Theresia Crone, and Oğuz Yılmaz. Thank you.